the most common pitfalls I see in addressing a behavior case is folks asking their dog for behaviors. And this comes from the idea of asking for an incompatible behavior to get behavior change. So if I have a dog who is jumping on the company, I might ask them to go to their bed, or I might ask them to sit. I might ask them to, and reinforce them for, a behavior that's incompatible with the unwanted behavior. And that's fine and dandy for manners. But this type of approach is contraindicated in behavior cases, particularly cases where the dog is struggling with a dysregulated nervous system. So they are dealing with anxiety disorder or trauma, chronic stress, hyperarousal, hypoarousal. So there are a number of reasons that I coach my clients not to ask their dog for behaviors in a behavior case. The first is that it messes up our data. One of the main points of data that we have in a behavior case, where we are in the moment judging where the dog falls on the stress scales, what emotion they're feeling, and how to best support them, is their body language and their behavior. And if we ask them to do something like sit, we now don't know what they would have been doing otherwise. So it's really common that the dog will go into the sit, they're sitting there, and then as the trigger gets closer, they leap up, they lunge, and they catch their human off guard. The human's like, they were sitting there, I thought everything was fine, and then we had a big reaction, we had a bite, they pulled the leash out of my hand. And that's because asking for the behavior cloaks our data. It messes up the data. This is the same reason that we're not using suppressive or aversive methods, because it's going to mess up our data and create potentially an even more unsafe situation. It's not the only reason we're not using suppressive and aversive methods, but it is one of them. The other piece to this is that imagine that your dog has spoons. We're all familiar with spoon theory, right? So your dog has a limited number of spoons, and a dog living with a dysregulated nervous system is lower on spoons probably than a dog who is not. And if we are asking them to spend precious energy, precious resources, precious spoons on sitting or being on a place or holding very still, perhaps in the face of what their body is telling them to do, which is to move often if we're at the point of adrenaline affecting the dog. Now they're spending precious resources that they could be using to self-regulate, to try to cope, to try to move away, to communicate with us, to gather information, to learn that they're safe. They now have less ability to do those very important things because they're holding a sit or trying to stay on a place. Another reason is that it reduces agency. And sometimes we need to reduce agency as part of management, right? We might say, oh, if I don't intervene here and reduce your agency to lunge forward or to bite someone, certainly that's not a desirable situation. But we want to be careful because agency, the belief that one has control over their environment, is strongly linked to, in a positive way, to resilience, to stress. And if I have a dog who has options, they can move themselves away, they can lower their arousal by sniffing, they can come in and ask for social support. If they can access these different coping skills, that's going to be way more beneficial and significantly reduce their stress in the moment compared to a dog who is being told what to do and made to do it. So I tend not to ask for behaviors in behavior cases. Some exceptions might be in a management moment, but more often than not, I am managing in other ways that don't take resources from the dog and that help them calm down on a physiological level. Exceptions might be like if I'm in a really crowded spot with a dog, I might need a heel of sorts, but I'm going to be really mindful of what that's taking from the dog, really mindful of how that might be masking some of my data, and I'm going to take that into account and be really conscious of that.